Good morning, boys and girls. Look at this little face. I think if there's one thing Paloma loves to do more than anything, it's sleep. Except maybe eating. And she likes going for walks, but boy, does she ever love to sleep. And she snores so loud. I think she sleeps with her eyes open sometimes, because sometimes she snores and she's looking at me. Oh, I think I'm offending her. She's kind of turning away. See, do you hear that? Big snore. So, boys and girls, this morning we're going to read When You Wonder Why. We're coming back to our devotions for kids for today. We've been reading about animals. I thought I'd change it up just a little bit. So let's see if we can get ourselves to look at Paloma, who does not want to look at me right now. I think she's insulted. Here you go, baby doll. When you wonder why. I can only imagine, boys and girls, how many times you have asked your parents the past couple of months, why? Why can't we go to school? Why can't I play with my friends? Why do I have to wear a mask if I go outside? Why do we have to stay inside? Why can't we do all the things that we used to do? Boys and girls, we're all asking that question. As adults, in our heads, we understand it. In our hearts, I think it makes all of us a little sad. So that's why I chose this, because it's when you wonder why. There are days when things just don't make sense, and you wonder, why? When why is all you can think, trust me. When you have no idea what to do, trust me. I love this kind of trust because I know it's real. No one else may understand exactly what you're going through, but I do. I understand perfectly. You are not alone. I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. I never get tired. I never run out of energy or strength. So ask me to work out your troubles for you. Things may get bumpy at times, but there is a way out. I will show it to you at just the right time. Instead of trying to fix things on your own, say this prayer. I trust you, Jesus. Help me, Holy Spirit. When the bumpy times come, cling even tighter to me. I won't let you fall. I will hold you up with my right hand. And this is from Genesis. I am with you, and I will protect you everywhere you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. This is from John. I will send you the helper from the Father. He is the Spirit of truth who comes from the Father. When he comes, he will tell about me. And this is a psalm. I stay close to you. You support me with your right hand. So, boys and girls, when we want to ask why, and we're not really satisfied with the answers our parents have for us, well, your parents have for you, it's not their fault. It's really unexplainable in a way. But I can tell you that I keep praying. I pray every day for my dad, who I haven't seen in months, and I miss him so much. There's going to come a day when we can all be together again and hug each other. And we just have to hold tight and be strong until that day comes, boys and girls. Okay, so let's move on, because there are still a lot of things that we can do to have fun until that time comes, and one of them is find out what happens to Mr. Mike TV. I've noticed something about all the characters in the book. There's one character who doesn't talk back to Mr. Wonka. One character who's respectful and who just gets so much joy out of everything that's happening in the factory. Which character is that? You guessed it. It's Charlie. Mike TV is sent by television. Mike TV was even more excited than Grandpa Joe at seeing a bar of chocolate being sent by television. But Mr. Wonka, can you send other things through the air the same way? Breakfast cereal, for instance? Oh, my sainted aunt, cried Mr. Wonka, don't mention that disgusting stuff in front of me. Do you know what breakfast cereal is made of? It's made of all those little curly wooden shavings you find in pencil sharpeners. Boy, you could send it by television if you wanted to. Like chocolate? Asked Mike TV. Of course I could. And what about other people? Could you send a person from one place to another in the same way? A person, cried Mr. Wonka. Are you off your rocker? But could it be done? Good heavens, child, I really don't know. I suppose it could. I guess it could. I'm sure it could. Of course it could. I wouldn't like to risk it, though. Might have some very nasty results. But Mike TV was already off and running the moment he heard Mr. Wonka saying, I'm pretty sure it could. Of course it could. He turned away and started running as fast as he could toward the other end of the room where the great camera was standing. Look at me! I'm going to be the first person in the world to be sent by television. No, 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 cried Mr. Wonka. Mike, screamed Mrs. TV, come back. You'll be turned into a million tiny pieces. But there was no stopping Mike TV now. The crazy boy rushed on, and when he reached the enormous camera, he jumped straight for the switch, scattering Oompa Loompas right and left as he went. See you later, alligator, he shouted, and he pulled down the switch, and as he did so, he leaped out into the full glare of the mighty lens. There was a blinding flash and a silence. Mike TV ran forward, but he stopped in the middle of the room. Mrs. TV ran forward. As she stood there, she was staring at the place where her son had been, and her mouth opened wide, and she screamed, He's gone! Great heavens, he has gone, shouted Mr. TV. Mr. Wonka hurried forward and placed a hand on Mrs. TV's shoulder. We shall have to hope for the best. We must pray that your little boy will come through unharmed at the other end. Mike, where are you? Screamed Mrs. TV. I'll tell you where he is, said Mr. TV. He's whizzing around our heads in a million tiny pieces. Don't talk about it, wailed Mrs. TV. We must watch the television set, said Mr. Wonka. He may come through at any moment. Mr. and Mrs. TV and Grandpa Joe and little Charlie and Mr. Wonka all gathered round the television and stared at the screen. It was blank. He's taking a heck of a long time to come across, said Mr. TV, wiping his brow. Oh dear, said Mr. Wonka. I do hope that no part of him gets left behind. What on earth do you mean? Asked Mr. TV. I don't wish to alarm you, but it does sometimes happen that only about half of the little pieces find their way into the television set. It happened last week. I don't know why, but the result was only half a bar of chocolate. Mrs. TV let out a scream of horror. You mean only half of Mike is coming back? Let's hope it's the top half, said Mr. TV. Hold everything. Watch the screen. Something's happening. The screen began to flicker. Some wavy lines appeared. Mr. Wonka adjusted the knobs. The lines went away. Slowly, the screen began to get brighter and brighter. Here he comes. That's him, all right. Is he in one piece? Asked Mrs. TV. Not sure. Too early to tell. Faintly at first, but clearer and clearer every second, the picture of Mike TV appeared on the screen. He was standing up and waving at the audience and grinning from ear to ear. But he's a midget, shouted Mr. TV. Mike, are you all right? Are there any bits of you missing? Isn't he going to get any bigger? Asked Mr. TV. Talk to me, Mike. Say something. Tell me you're all right. A tiny little voice, no louder than the squeaking of a mouse, came out of the television set. Hi, Mom. Hi, Pop. Look at me. I'm the first person to be sent by television. Grab him, ordered Mr. Wonka. Mrs. TV shot out a hand and picked the tiny figure of Mike TV off the screen. Hooray! He's all in one piece. He's completely unharmed. You call that unharmed? Snapped Mrs. TV, peering at the little speck of a boy who was running across the palm of her hand, waving his pistols in the air. He was not more than 1 inch tall. He shrunk, cried Mr. TV. Of course, what did you expect? What are we going to do? Asked Mrs. TV. Can't send him back to school like this. He'll get squashed. He won't be able to do anything, said Mrs. TV. Of course I will. I'll be able to watch television. Never again. I'm throwing the TV out as soon as we get home." When he heard this, Mike TV flew into a terrible tantrum. He started jumping up and down on the palm of his mother's hand, screaming and yelling, "I want to watch! I want to watch!" "Give him to me," said Mr. TV. He took the tiny boy and put him into the pocket of his jacket. Squeals came inside of the pocket. "Mr. Wonka, how can we make him grow?" "Well," said Mr. Wonka, "I must say that's a wee bit tricky. But small boys are extremely springy and elastic. They stretch, so we'll put him into a special machine that I have for testing the stretchiness of chewing gum. Maybe that will bring him back to what he was." "Thank you," cried Mrs. TV. "Don't mention it, dear lady." "How far do you think it'll stretch?" asked Mr. TV. "Maybe miles. Who knows? He's going to be awfully thin. Everything gets thinner when it's stretched." "Like chewing gum?" asked Mr. TV. "Exactly." "How thin will he be?" "Haven't the foggiest," asked Mr. Wonka. "It doesn't really matter. All we have to do is give him a triple dose of my super vitamin candy. Super vitamin candy contains huge amounts of vitamin A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and believe it or not, Z. The only vitamins missing are S, because it makes you sick, and H, because it makes you grow horns out of the top of your head. Does have a small amount of vitamin Wonka." No arguments now. He snapped his fingers, and immediately 2 Oompa Loompas appeared and stood beside him. "Follow these orders," said Mr. Wonka. He handed them a piece of paper on which he had written the instructions. "You'll find the boy in the father's pocket. Goodbye, Mr. TV. Goodbye, Mrs. TV. Don't look so worried. They all come out in the wash. You know, all of them." The Oompa Loompas took Mike TV off to the stretching room. So, boys and girls, 4 little children down, 1 to go. We're going to find out what happens in the next chapter. Is only Charlie left. Have a good day, boys and girls.